What if the book of Revelation is not mainly about fear, but about exposure? What if the apocalypse is not just a prophecy of destruction, but an unveiling of what has been hidden in plain sight all along? Most people hear the word revelation and immediately think of the Antichrist, the beast, the mark, 666, the four horsemen, and the end of the world. But the book does not begin with the beast, and it does not begin with the destruction of the earth. It begins with these words, the revelation of Jesus Christ, in Revelation chapter 1, verse 1. That opening line matters because it tells us the center of the book before we ever reach the dragon, Babylon, or the mark of the beast. Revelation is not mainly a horror story. It is an unveiling. The word apocalypse originally means a revelation, a disclosure, the uncovering of something hidden. So if we read Revelation only as a future disaster movie, we may completely miss what the book is actually doing. It is revealing the nature of power, the nature of deception, the nature of worship, and the final defeat of evil. This is why Revelation is one of the most misunderstood books in the Bible. Some people turn it into fear content. Others avoid it completely because it seems too strange, too symbolic, or too dark. But Revelation is not random chaos. It has a structure, a message, and a warning. It shows what happens when human systems try to take the place of God, when empire becomes sacred, when people trade conscience for survival, and when corruption presents itself as order. So in this video, we are not going to chase fake predictions or internet panic. We are going to look at the symbols, the biblical text, and the meaning most people completely miss. The first major mistake people make is misunderstanding symbolism. Many readers treat Revelation in one of two extreme ways. Either everything must be literal, or everything is just imaginary. But Revelation is neither. It is symbolic, but symbolic does not mean fake, and it does not mean random. In fact, the book often explains its own symbols. In Revelation chapter 1, John sees 7 golden candlesticks and 7 stars. Then Revelation chapter 1, verse 20 gives the meaning directly. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches. That verse teaches us how the book works. A symbol appears, and then its meaning is unveiled. The candlesticks represent churches. The stars represent angels. Later, the dragon is identified as Satan. Babylon is presented as a corrupt world system. The beast represents power that demands worship. So, Revelation is not written like a modern newspaper report, but it is also not meaningless fantasy. It speaks through symbols because symbols can reveal layers of meaning that plain description cannot. A beast is not just an animal. A dragon is not just a monster. Babylon is not just a city. These images carry spiritual, political, and moral meaning at the same time. One of the biggest keys to understanding Revelation is the number 7. The book speaks of 7 churches, 7 spirits, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls, 7 stars, and 7 candlesticks. In biblical symbolism, 7 often points to fullness, completion, and divine order. That matters because when people read Revelation quickly, they often feel only panic, war, plagues, judgment, beasts, fire, and collapse. But beneath those terrifying images, the book is not showing a universe out of control. It is showing evil being exposed, judged, and brought to its limit. The 4 horsemen are one of the most famous images in Revelation. They appear in chapter 6 when the Lamb opens the first 4 seals. John sees a white horse, a red horse, a black horse, and a pale horse. These images have been used in movies, paintings, and end times theories for centuries. But in the text, they are not random monsters. They represent forces that have shaped human history again and again. Conquest, war, scarcity, and death. Revelation. Chapter 6 verse 8 says, "And I looked, and behold a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death." The power of that image is not only that terrible events may happen in the future. The deeper point is that Revelation is showing the repeated pattern of a fallen world. When human power is separated from God, it produces conquest, violence, economic imbalance, and death. The 4 horsemen are not just a future event on a timeline. They are a mirror held up to human history. They show what humanity keeps producing when domination replaces truth. Then comes the dragon, and this symbol is identified directly. Revelation chapter 12, verse 9 says, "And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan." So the dragon is not a mystery creature. The dragon represents Satan, the spiritual force behind deception, accusation, and rebellion. But the important detail is that the dragon does not work only through violence. He works through deception. This is one of the central warnings of Revelation. The book repeatedly shows false signs, false authority, false worship, and false peace. The danger is not always obvious evil. Sometimes the danger is evil, disguised as security, progress, comfort, wealth, or social approval. Revelation is asking whether people can see clearly when deception looks normal, when the crowd accepts it, and when compromise feels easier than faithfulness. That is why Revelation is not only warning about monsters, it is warning about systems that train people to obey without thinking, to worship without noticing, and to surrender their conscience in exchange for survival. A modern example does not have to be political. Think about how easily people can be pressured by status, money, algorithms, trends, and public approval. People can begin to shape their identity, their values, and even their morality around whatever gives them access, attention, income, or social acceptance. Revelation takes that human weakness and shows it on a cosmic scale. The beast appears in Revelation chapter 13, and this is where many people reduce the entire book to one future villain. But the beast is bigger than one man. In Revelation, the beast represents power that sets itself against God. Imperial power, political power, religious manipulation, and human authority, when it demands ultimate loyalty. Revelation chapter 13, verse 4 says, "Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him?" That language is not only political, it is worship language. The beast is not merely feared. The beast is admired, obeyed, and worshipped. That is the warning. The beast is what happens when power becomes sacred, when survival becomes the highest value, when truth is sacrificed for security, and when conscience becomes negotiable. The beast is not only a creature, it is a system that wants fear, loyalty, obedience, and worship. This leads directly to the most famous number in Revelation, 666. Revelation chapter 13, verse 18 says, "Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666." The first words are essential. Here is wisdom. Revelation does not say, here is panic. It does not say, here is paranoia. It says, here is wisdom. That means the number is not given to produce obsession, but discernment. Many interpretations focus only on external signs, but Revelation pushes the reader toward a deeper question. What kind of power is being worshipped, and what kind of humanity is being formed by that worship? The text says it is the number of a man. In biblical symbolism, 7 often points to divine completion, while 6 falls short of 7. 6 is almost complete, but not complete. So 666 can be understood as intensified incompletion, human power pretending to be divine, a counterfeit perfection, a system that looks complete but is spiritually empty. It is humanity trying to become God without God. That makes 666 far more personal than a simple horror symbol. It is not just a scary number, it is a warning against counterfeit salvation. It warns against systems that promise peace but demand worship, systems that promise security but require obedience, systems that promise identity but erase conscience. The real danger of 666 is not that someone sees a number and becomes cursed. The real danger is that people bow to something incomplete because it looks powerful enough to save them. Then Revelation connects the beast to the mark. Revelation chapter 13 says that people receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no one can buy or sell without it except those who have the mark, the name of the beast, or the number of his name. The buying and selling detail is one reason this passage creates so much fear. It touches survival, money, access, and exclusion. But the locations also matter. The forehead and the hand are not random. The forehead points to thought, identity, belief, and allegiance. The hand points to action, work, obedience, and participation. So the mark is not only about something external, it is about ownership. Who owns the mind? Who directs the actions? Who receives loyalty when pressure comes? Who gets obedience when truth becomes costly? This is why the mark of the beast should not be reduced to cheap speculation. Revelation is asking something deeper than, what object should I be afraid of? It is asking, who has your allegiance? If a system controls what people think, what they do, what they fear, what they desire, and what they are willing to compromise, then that system has marked them long before any physical sign appears. From the beast, Revelation moves naturally into Babylon, because the beast is power, and Babylon is the seductive world built around that power. Babylon is one of the deepest symbols in the entire book. In Revelation chapter 17, Babylon appears as a woman sitting on a beast. And Revelation chapter 17, verse 5, calls her Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. This is not ordinary city language. This is symbolic language. Babylon represents a corrupt world system. Luxury without holiness, wealth without justice, power without truth, pleasure without conscience, and religion without God. If the beast rules through fear and domination, Babylon seduces through beauty, wealth, comfort, and desire. One crushes the conscience, the other buys it. In Revelation chapter 18, the merchants mourn when Babylon falls because their wealth depended on her. That detail is crucial because Babylon is not only spiritual corruption, it is also economic corruption. It is a system where everything becomes merchandise: truth, bodies, loyalty, justice, and even human life. Revelation. Chapter 18, verse 13, includes slaves and souls of men among Babylon's merchandise. That is one of the darkest lines in the book. Babylon is the world when prophet becomes God, beautiful on the surface, rotten underneath. This is where the connection with Rome enters, but it must be understood carefully. Revelation chapter 17, verse 9 says, "The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth." Many interpreters connect this image with Rome, because ancient Rome was famously associated with 7 hills. For the first Christians, Rome was the empire directly in front of them, a power that dominated, persecuted, demanded loyalty, and presented itself as eternal. But the symbol does not stop with Rome. Rome becomes a pattern: empire, luxury, violence, spiritual seduction, false worship, and the illusion that human power will last forever. That is why Revelation speaks across time. It had meaning for the first century church. It has meaning wherever corrupt systems demand allegiance, and many Christians believe it will have a final fulfillment at the end of history. Revelation is not flat. It is layered. It shows a first century empire, but it also reveals a repeating spiritual pattern: power that demands worship, luxury that seduces conscience, and systems that ask people to compromise in order to belong. So, what is Revelation really asking from the reader? Not panic, endurance. The book was written to people under pressure, surrounded by empire, idolatry, persecution, compromise, fear, and false worship. Again and again, Revelation calls people to remain faithful. Do not worship the beast. Do not be seduced by Babylon. Do not mistake worldly power for divine authority. Do not lose your soul because everyone else bows down. That is the real message. Revelation is not written to make people hysterical. It is written to make them awake. It is a resistance text, a spiritual warning, and an unveiling of what evil looks like when it becomes organized. And then comes the ending, which is the biggest thing people get wrong. Many people think Revelation ends with destruction, but it does not. Revelation ends with restoration. Revelation chapter 21, verse 1 says, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth." Then Revelation chapter 21, verse 4 says, "And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain." That is the final picture, not the beast, not Babylon, not the dragon, not 666, not death. The final image is healing, God dwelling with humanity, death destroyed, pain removed, and creation restored. Revelation is not ultimately about the end of the world. It is about the end of evil, the end of deception, the end of corruption, the end of false worship, and the beginning of a renewed creation. So, what do most people get wrong about Revelation? They read it as a codebook for fear, but it is an unveiling. It reveals empire. It reveals deception. It reveals false worship. It reveals the cost of compromise. It reveals what evil does when it gets power. But most importantly, it reveals who has the final word. The dragon deceives, the beast rises, Babylon seduces, and the world trembles. But Revelation begins with Jesus Christ, and it ends with God making all things new. So, the real question Revelation leaves us with is not simply when the end will come. The real question is this: what are you worshiping right now?